Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. What's up, you bunch of WordPress nerds? In this video, I'm going to be going over two different ways that you can sync your database in WordPress. So the first way is going to be the automatic and fancy way, and the second way is going to be the manual and the hard way. So if you're interested, stick around. If you are new to the channel, make sure to ring the bell and hit the subscribe button to make sure you get notified of my weekly WordPress tutorials. All right, let's jump into it. All right, before we get started, I wanted to quickly thank my lovely patrons. Look at them all. Thank you so much for supporting me in the channel. I couldn't do it without you guys. I really appreciate it. If you're interested in becoming a patron as well, the link is in the description. It will come with a couple of benefits as well as my undying love. So what? Can't put a price on that, can you? All right, so let's jump into the automatic and fun way of syncing your database. All right, so for our automatic way, we're going to be using WP Migrate DB Pro. And the reason why I'm choosing this plugin over others is I feel like it rounds out all the features that I'm looking for in a tool like this. It lets you do some pretty granular things. So as a developer, this is the kind of tool that I would be using under these circumstances. And what the circumstances are is that I have a local site that has is fallen behind what my staging site has, or my live site. And so our live site will have changes made onto it. People are, my client is got blog posts on it. It's got extra images. They've added new plugins. They've done all this stuff to the site. And, months later they come to me and say, hey, we need you to do some stuff on it. So what I need to do as the developer is I need to get my local copy up to date. And that way I can have a full picture of what the site currently looks like, and I can make my changes and then push them back up. So this is one of many ways that you can do this. And so we're going to be using WP Migrate DB Pro for this first example. The second example is we're just going to be doing it kind of the old-fashioned way and manually. And then we'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons of each and when it might be worth it to, drop down some bucks on a plugin like this, or if it would be better just to do it the old-fashioned way. So what I have here is this DigitalOcean droplet that's just under an IP address. And what we're going to do is we're going to get it out of date of our local, because as of right now, they're actually synced up. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a couple posts here, just some test posts. Test post 1, and we're going to publish that one. And we're going to create another one. Test post 2. And let's grab some images that I think I might have some locally. So let's go to our image library. And we're going to add a couple. And my downloads. And then we're going to upload both of these to my live site. So we're basically pretending at this point that blog posts have been created. We've got some extra images on there that haven't been put up there by us, and we need to then sync it down locally. And oh my goodness, these images are large, so it's going to take a second. Once we're going to do this, we're going to also install a couple plugins just to kind of make things difficult. So let's install BuddyPress, because why not? It's here. And we're going to activate that as well. Lovely. All right, cool. So now we have an out-of-date live site. So what we need to do is we need to go to my local site, which we have the plugin installed. So we have the developer license of WP Migrate DB Pro. So that comes with these two add-ons, the media files and themes and plugin files. So that kind of gives you the full migration experience. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be going to Tools and Migrate DB Pro. And then I'm going to do a fresh profile here. And then I'm going to pull. That means I want to go out and reach from my live site and pull down all the stuff. So I'm going to be going to my live site here. I'm going to be going to its version of MigrateDB Pro settings, and I'm going to be getting the connection information. Copy to the clipboard, paste it in, and then it's going to do a couple things from top to bottom. It's going to pull from this address. It's going to find all the instances of that IP address and replace it with my local copy. And then it's going to find the HTML path for the live site and replace it with my local HTML path. So that is a nice feature, and you can start to do that with other things as well. We could migrate only specific tables, or we can exclude, certain things like transients and all that, which you probably want to. And then here we can run a backup, or we can do media files. And this is kind of cool because it lets you then compare and download all the files that are there. So it's going to fill in the gap of what you have locally versus what they have. Compare, download, then remove, which is going to compare all of the files up on the live site, bring them down, and remove any ones locally that I have that the live site doesn't have. So it keeps it as slim as possible. So we're just going to do compare, then download for now because there's just 2 images up there. Then you can bring down any theme files. In this case, we haven't changed the theme file, so we're going to leave that alone. And then any plugin files that we don't have locally. So we're going to bring in BuddyPress as well. And then we're going to save this as a migration profile. And then we're going to pull and save. So it's going to bring in the database for us, and then it's going to bring in all of the files. So not only is it the main full file, but it's also all of the cropped versions of that file. And then finally, it's going to bring in the plugin that we don't have, which is BuddyPress. So it's going to bring in all of those plugin files, and then it's going to essentially bring up our entire local site up to date. So it says that it has been complete. So it's going to log us out, which is perfectly fine. And we're going to log right back in. And then let's check. So we should have 2 new posts here, test post 1 and test post 2. And we have our media library, which has this picture that makes me oddly uncomfortable. And then the second picture. We now have BuddyPress activated locally. And we have, BuddyPress is right here. So that does 3 things for us very quickly. So I would say that this has saved us 30 minutes or so of maybe more of time to actually go out, grab the database, find and replace this stuff, go out and FTP down the images, FTP down any extra files. And we did this all kind of with just a couple clicks. So very quick setup, very quick execution. So now let's do this the manual way. All right, so let's jump over to our live site again, and let's get it even more out of date. So let's install BBPress now, because we're in the Wild West and we can do whatever we want. So we now have another one. Let's add some more media files here. Let's go to Unsplash because I used up my 2 images already. Let's go to wallpapers, and now let's just download another image. And let's upload that image to the live site. And then we should be good here. Okay, so now we're going to be doing this the manual way. Let's actually do another test post so we can do the database. Test post 3. So publish that as well. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and do this the old-fashioned way. So the first thing that I would normally do here is I would open up SQL Pro. If I can find it, SQL Pro. All right, so I'm going to be connecting to my DigitalOcean droplet, and I'm going to be just exporting the entire thing. So export, and I'm going to be doing it on my desktop. I'm going to use the drop table syntax to make sure it overwrites what I have locally. And that's just going to be on my desktop. So now that we have our desktop exporting, what we're going to want to do next is we're going to want to do some finding and replacing. And the easiest and the most manual way, some people are going to hate this, is actually just, let me do a new thing here. So let's go to the desktop, and then we want to look for a SQL file. So what we want to do is we want to open this in code. So 2.18. So we're opening this up in Visual Studio Code. And we're going to be physically finding and replacing this kind of stuff because we're monsters. So we're going to be going to our local Migrate DB Pro, so I can just copy and paste what we have inside of here. We're going to replace that IP address. We're going to search for the IP address, and we're going to be replacing it with our local. And then find and replace. There's 65 times in here in one file. And then we're going to be doing the same thing with the path, just in case. I don't know if it's actually going to have anything. Oh, there was. So we're going to replace all of those. And so now we have an up-to-date SQL file that we can then put inside of our local by Flywheel instance. So if we go to local by Flywheel, we go to database, we open it up with SQL Pro, we should now be able to import that. So import, and we're going to have on our desktop that, and we're going to open it up. And we should now have an up-to-date local database. So we should be good there. And then now what we need to do is we need to update our media files because we still don't have that. And we need to bring in our theme files and plugin files. And that is just our good old-fashioned FTP. Local sites, not movies. Goodness gracious. So local sites, and then we have our database sync, app public, WP content, and let's do our uploads first. So we're going to connect to my DigitalOcean droplet, and then we're going to bring over those files. So we're going to be going to our root again. We're going to be going to var, www, HTML, WP content, uploads, and then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be syncing between the two. So sync from our live site down to, so this uploads directory to our local directory. And this is kind of delete orphan destination file. So that will delete anything that we don't have, but we're just going to bring down everything. Let's simulate it first just to see. So it's just those files that were changed. So we're just it's just that one file cropped. So we're going to sync those files down. And by the way, if you don't have transmit, this is like one of the best this is the best FTP tool in my opinion out there. So you can do this kind of stuff. So now we have all of those files. And then finally, we need to do the same thing with plugins, and SQL Pro crashes, of course. Themes, WP content, plugins, and we need to do the same thing. So WP content, plugins, and then we'll sync those down as well. All right, so it found its files that it needs to, and it's going to sync those down. All right, so that actually synced down all the files, took a minute. You can thank me later for not making you go through all that. And then we should, after all of that, have an up-to-date site. So let's log back in. And let's check to see what we got here. Not pages, but posts. So we have test post 3. We should have a third media file. Yep, we've got that image. And then down here, we have bbpress installed. So we now have our up-to-date WordPress site that we can then work on. So what are the differences between the two? When would you want to, when is it actually worth it to drop the money on something like WP Migrate DB Pro? I would say probably the number one reason I would drop the money on a developer license or something like that, because that's really what you're doing when you're buying WP Migrate DB Pro. You're not really doing the personal or side hustle licenses. You're doing the developer license because you need to do the plugin and theme files. You need to do like the media files and the CLI add-on, which we'll go over another time. But The real reason why you would be wanting to do that is if you have a bunch of sites, like kind of doing what I did is kind of juggling connection information between like all of my different servers. And so if you have like 1 or 2 sites and you're doing, you know, kind of freelance where you're doing like 2 projects a year, it's not really worth it in my opinion. I think it's just like straight overkill where you could just, you can find your FTP stuff and your MySQL stuff real fast. And then you just do it for those 2 sites. But if you're doing this and you're juggling a lot of clients, if you've got, upwards of not 30 clients, but if you got like anywhere than like 5 to 10 plus, I mean, and you're actively working on them, this is where that's starting to actually save you time and money for that matter. Because if you think about it in terms of paying your own hourly rate for your plugin, to think about like if you were to take your hourly rate and charge yourself per hour how much time you're spending doing this, the developer license kind of end up paying for itself over, X amount of times, depends. But ultimately, that's when I think that would be when it starts to make it worth it. And so if you're kind of in the market of getting something like this plugin, then I have a link in the description that is an affiliate link. So if you end up purchasing the plugin, then I get a small amount back. It doesn't change how much you purchase the plugin for. It's the same price, whether you use my link or not. All you would be doing is supporting me. So I also want to quickly shout out Delicious Brains. They gave me a license so we could play with it here today and I can show off some of the features. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. If you have some better ways of doing this, please let me know in the description or reach out to me on Twitter. I always want to learn about better ways to do this and more automated ways to just make our lives easier in general. And I'd love to share any ideas you guys come up with in another video. But I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for the support, and I will see you in the next one.